Hello everyone, I'm Teeny Tie-Dye. I'm in middle school and I started tying with my dad about 1.5 years ago now. Today I'm going to be doing a diamond design and I'm making it for one of my Facebook friends, Tyler. I'm starting with a 100% cotton t-shirt that's been soaked in soda ash for an hour, and then I spun it out in my washing machine so now it's slightly damp. First thing I'm going to do is center the t-shirt. I have a centering video that shows how to center a t-shirt. It's only a couple minutes long and I'll be linking that in my bio. So I'm just going to center this t-shirt really quickly. You may have noticed I turned the t-shirt inside out, and that's because I'm going to be ice dyeing it. Sometimes when you ice dye shirts, it leaves little spots, so when you turn it inside out, they're easier to get rid of, and you can't really see them as much when they're on the inside. And I'm going to be linking the centering video in my description box below, so be sure to check that out. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my washable marker and do a mark about where I want the top of the diamond to be. I usually like it a few inches below the collar, but that's really just personal preference. So I'm just going to do a little mark where I want the top of the diamond to be, and then another little mark where I want the very bottom of the diamond to be. And that's also personal preference. Okay, so I don't know how well you can see them, but they're here and here. That's where I want the top and bottom of my diamond to be. So now I'm just going to measure in between those two dots, and it is exactly 15.5. So 15.5, so 7 3/4. Okay, and then I did a little mark right in the center of those 2 points. So I got 2 dots here, and then one in the very center. And now I'm going to take my shirt right here and fold it up so that this crease that I just made is right on that little dot that I drew. I'm going to make sure everything feels nice and flat. There's no creases or anything. Okay, now that I've got that all lined up, I'm going to grab my ruler . And I can still kind of see the dots when I look at it from the side. So I'm going to look at this top dot I made right here that was a couple inches below the collar. Put the ruler right on that. And then pull it out this way so it kind of makes a triangle like that. So now the end of the ruler is kind of near where the bottom of the sleeve is, and the top of it is at that one dot. And this depends on how wide you want the diamond. Do you want the diamond to go all the way to this side of the t-shirt, or do you want it to be in a little bit? I like mine a couple inches in, so I like it just like this. Now I'm going to draw a line. And I think that looks pretty good, so I'm going to stick with that. Now that I've got that line drawn, I'm going to adjust the shirt towards me, and I'm going to do a fan fold or a pleat along this line. And that's basically just when you pinch the fabric with your fingers up, keeping it about 1 inch tall, and then just do that continuously, lining up each pleat as you go across the shirt. Just like that. Okay. And now that I've done that, I'm going to make sure everything looks straight and lined up the way I want it. Sorry, my head's just going to pop in here for a second. There we go. Now I'm going to take sinew. Sinew is like waxed, so it's really good for distinct shapes or lines that you want to be visible on your shirt. You can use rubber bands or kite string or whatever really works for you, but my favorite thing to use for this design is sinew, because it gets everything nice and tight. Now I'm going to take my pointer finger and thumb and hold the kite string. Let me zoom it in for you a bit. Oop, that's zooming out. Okay. So I'm going to take the kite string between my pointer finger and my thumb and just hold it in place over that purple line and then slide it under with my other hand and then cross back over. And then just do that a couple times, making sure that the sinew stays nice and straight, all lined up, and pulling it tight as I go. I'm going to wrap this quite a few times because I really want there to be a distinct line of the outline of the diamond. We actually yesterday just went and dropped up some shirts to a foster agency for kids and families. I'm part of a Facebook group that does monthly charity events. There's a lot of really cool people in there. So this year we each participated and made some shirts. And yesterday me and my dad dropped them off, and that was really exciting because last year me and my dad made them, the foster agency, some shirts, just us. And it was a lot of work and it was a lot of fun. But this year we got the group to help us out. And I think it was a lot of fun doing like a team effort, all of us making shirts and getting to send them out. So that was really exciting. Okay. Now I'm going to straighten this out right here. I was at a loss for words. Okay. So I'm going to straighten this out right here. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take my sinew, keep it connected, and first I'm going to take it and cross it over to my right. And I'm going to cross it over to my right, making a little triangle, and then wrap the sinew just like I did before, over that sinew line this time. Making sure it's really, really tight. What this is doing is it's going to make some texture within the diamond so that it has a cool design when you open it up. Ow. Okay, now what I'm going to do is come under and then cross my sinew the other way toward my left, creating another little diamond going the other way so that it looks something like that. And this is kind of a pattern. It was really tricky for me when I first started learning it. So I've had to practice it a couple times, and I think I'm starting to get the hang of it. And now I really love doing this pattern. And I think it just adds a really cool effect to designs, and you can use it in a lot of different ways. So I'm just wrapping it just like I did before, and this time I'm going to go under and bring the sinew over to my right again. So you can kind of see it's just a continuous pattern, making these really tight little triangles over and over. I'm going to do that all the way till I get to the end. Now, that's all done. I'll show you what it looks like. That's pretty much the main part of the fold. Now with the rest of this fabric, I'm just going to do a quick scrunch. Scrunch, you just take your hands like spiders and just twist and scrunch the fabric together. It's pretty hard to do it right here because the fabric is so thick, but it's okay. I think I can manage. There we go. And to tie off this scrunch, I'm going to be using kite string. You can use rubber bands for this. I wouldn't recommend sinew. It's really up to you though, because sinew, there's really no distinct lines I need in this area. But kite string, I really like to use it because I can really control the tension and keep everything nice and tight. It's really just personal preference though. This is kind of like the sinew. You want to hold it in place using one hand and then wrap it using the other, pulling it nice and tight. Sometimes the kite string can break, which isn't fun because then you have to tie it back to the other piece and it's just not fun. Yesterday, me and my dad were tying hoodies, and it happened like 3 times while he was tying his. Okay. Here's what the finished fold looks like. So I'll see you guys in just a few seconds when we're going to dye the t-shirt. Okie dokie everyone, I'm back. I've got this easy liner on my shirt. I'll be putting a link to that down in my bio if you want to check it out. So now I'm going to dye the shirt. I'm going to be using Procyon dyes from Dharma. I'm going to do lilac, purple, grape, and powerberry. And then I've got my soda ash here to put on afterwards. So I'm going to be putting the lilac on the smaller little parts in here. And then I'm going to be putting grape on the bigger parts out of these little triangle things. And then for the scrunch, I'm going to be doing powerberry. And then I've got my mask here so that I'm not breathing in all this dye. And then some spoons. So I'm just going to get started applying the dye. I'm going to do a moderate to thin layer, making sure there's no big white spots on cover dye. But I'm not going to like stack it up and do too much dye because these purples are pretty strong. Okay, one thing I decided I'm going to do is because this powerberry color for the scrunch is really, really strong, I don't want to completely cover this with powerberry. So I'm going to take lavender, another Dharma Procyon dye. It's a really, really light purple, and I'm just going to sprinkle some of that in between these white sections just to make sure that everything gets covered up nice and good. So I'm just going to do that really quickly. Okay, now I'm just going to take some soda ash powder and sprinkle it across the whole shirt to make sure that the shirt really absorbs all this dye and is nice and vibrant. Okay, now I'm just going to add a even layer of ice over the whole thing, not really stacking it or anything, just one even layer out of my favorite cat bowl that I accidentally broke, so I had to give it some bandages, but it's okay. Okay, so now I'm going to do that. Okay, I've got all the ice laid on, and now I'm going to put it outside and let it melt, even though it's like 60 degrees outside. It's okay though. It may take overnight, but we'll see how that goes. So I may or may not need to flip this. It kind of just depends on how everything goes. So once this is melted, I'm going to look at the bottom, and if I see that the dye is coming through, then I don't need to then I don't need to flip it and add more dye. I'm just going to let it finish melting overnight and then rinse it the next day. But if I look at the bottom and I see that it's still white, there's not a lot of color coming through, then I'm going to reapply the dye on the other side and add more ice. So we'll see how that goes. Hello everybody, I'm back. It's been about 24 hours now and I'm ready to rinse it out. So yesterday I did end up needing to flip the shirt, but I only needed to add a little bit of dye powder on the scrunch area. I did not need to add any more on this area because all the dye was soaked through enough where I didn't need to add any. So I already rinsed off all the powdered dye so that this was just a little bit quicker. And now I'm going to cut off the string and yeah, we'll see how that goes. Ooh, I've never done one of these with purple, so I'm really excited to see how this looks. Because purple is my all-time favorite color. And it's definitely going to lighten up a lot once it's washed. So that's why it looks very dark right now. Ooh, this is really pretty. Okay, here's what it looks like right now. Ooh. I guess my dad likes it too. Okay, so now I'm going to rinse it out and wring it out underneath the water, starting with cold water just to start getting out all that dye. Then I'm going to move on to warm water, continue doing the same thing for a couple minutes, and then I'm going to move on to hot water because hot water really helps get all that excess dye out in the sink. Okay, now that it's rinsed out pretty good and the water's running clear, it's lightened up a bit more. You can see how that crisscross sinew pattern really made a cool look within the diamond. So now I'm going to throw it in the washer on the normal cycle with hot water, And I'm going to throw in about half a cup of Synthropol in there with it. Synthropol is an industrial detergent that really just helps the t-shirt lock in all the dye. And then I'm going to dry it, and we'll be back with the results.
Thumbs up.
Alright everybody, I'm back, and here's the finished t-shirt. I'm really happy with the way it turned out, and I really love this Powerberry color. I had a lot of fun making it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe, and check me out on Instagram, Facebook, and Etsy at Teeny Tie Dye. Peace.